Picture this. You're suiting up for game day, strapping on your helmet, ready to give everything for your team. Then, boom, you're locked out. No games, no paychecks, just picket lines and lawyers. Welcome to the brutal history of NFL labor wars. From shotgun-wielding Chiefs players to replacement scabs getting egged by Houston Oilers, we're diving into every single NFL lockout and strike that shaped the game you know today. Number 8, the 1968 strike lockout, the birth of player power. Before 1968, NFL players had about as much bargaining power as a third-string punter trying to negotiate with Vince Lombardi. Team owners didn't recognize any union, controlled everything from salaries to socks, and basically ran the league like their personal kingdom. But that summer, something revolutionary happened. The newly formed NFL Players Association, tired of being treated like equipment rather than employees, threatened to strike. The owners' response? They locked the players out faster than you could say collective bargaining. This wasn't just any lockout. This was the first major labor showdown in NFL history, lasting 12 days in July 1968. Here's where it gets spicy. The players wanted better compensation and actual recognition as a union. The owners acted like the players were asking for the moon, Mars, and a couple asteroids thrown in for good measure. But after less than 2 weeks of the standoff, something miraculous happened. The owners blinked first. On July 15th, 1968, the NFL officially recognized the NFLPA, and boom, the first ever collective bargaining agreement in pro football was born. The players got pension benefits, and more importantly, they got respect. Well, sort of. This CBA was like getting a participation trophy when you wanted the championship, but hey, it was a start. Fun fact, this whole drama went down while the AFL was still a separate league. The AFL Players Association had already cut their own deal, which made the NFL players look like they were playing catch-up. Nothing like a little interleague rivalry to motivate negotiations. The merger was still 2 years away, but the labor disputes were already setting the stage for decades of owner-player battles to come. Before we move on to the next one on the list, I'd like to ask you a small favor. If you're enjoying this content so far, please take a second to like this video and subscribe to the channel. Over 98% of you watch these videos without subscribing. Imagine what we could accomplish if everyone subscribed. It costs you nothing, but it makes a huge difference to us, thanks to all of you who do. Number 7, the 1970 strike the 3-week standoff. Just 2 years after their first victory, NFL players were back at it again. This time, it was July 1970, and the league had just merged with the AFL. You'd think everyone would be in a celebratory mood, right? Wrong! Veterans were getting locked out of training camps faster than a rookie trying to sneak into a team meeting 5 minutes late. The NFLPA said, enough is enough, and voted to strike on July 13th. The standoff lasted about 3 weeks, with both sides digging in their heels like a goal line stand. By August 3rd, everyone was back on the field with a shiny new 4-year deal worth $19.1 million. Not exactly a marathon like future strikes would be, but longer than your average training camp holdout. What makes this strike fascinating is what happened afterward. The newly merged NFLPA became the first pro sports union recognized by the National Labor Relations Board. That's like going from playing in your backyard to suddenly being invited to the Pro Bowl, a massive leap in legitimacy. But here's the dirty little secret: many union player representatives mysteriously got cut by their teams after the strike. Coincidence? About as likely as the Browns winning the Super Bowl that year. Teams were sending a message, sure, we'll negotiate, but don't get too comfortable leading the charge. The 1970 strike might have been brief, but it established a pattern that would repeat throughout NFL history. Players push for more, owners push back, lawyers get rich, and eventually everyone meets somewhere in the middle. The $19.1 million deal sounds quaint now. Patrick Mahomes makes that in about 3 games, but back then, it was revolutionary money. Number 6, the 1974 Strike the Rozelle Rule Rebellion. By 1974, NFL players had discovered the most powerful weapon in sports lawyers who understood antitrust law. The strike that began on July 1st lasted 41 days, and at its heart was something called the Rozelle Rule, named after Commissioner Pete Rozelle, who apparently thought he was running a medieval fiefdom. Here's how the Rozelle Rule worked. If a player became a free agent and signed with another team, Commissioner Rozelle could personally decide what compensation the original team deserved. He could literally take players, draft picks, or cash from the signing team. Imagine if your new boss could just call your old boss and say, hey, since you hired Jim, I'm taking your best salesperson as compensation. That's essentially what was happening. Players went on strike, demanding guaranteed salaries and an end to this nonsense. The owner's strategy? Do absolutely nothing. They waited 41 days until players finally crawled back to training camp on August 10th without a new deal. It looked like a total defeat for the players. But wait, the NFLPA had an ace up their sleeve. They took the Rozelle Rule to court, claiming it violated federal antitrust laws. The result was the Mackey versus NFL case, and spoiler alert, the players won. The court basically said, yeah, this Rozelle Rule thing is totally illegal, dealing the owners their first major legal defeat. This strike taught both sides a crucial lesson. Sometimes the real victories happen in courtrooms, not conference rooms. The 1974 strike might have ended with players returning empty-handed, but it set up the legal precedents that would eventually lead to true free agency. It's like losing the battle, but setting up to win the war chess. Not checkers, folks. Number 5, the 1982 Strike Super Bowl Tournament Madness. If you think the 2020 COVID season was weird, let me tell you about 1982, the year the NFL went completely off the rails. This wasn't just a strike. It was a 57-day marathon that turned the entire season into a bizarre fever dream. It started on September 21st after just 2 weeks of regular season games. The players wanted 55% of gross revenues, not net. Gross. The owners looked at them like they'd asked to date their daughters and borrow the Porsche on the same night. When negotiations stalled, boom, we get the longest strike in NFL history at that point. Here's where it gets wild. When they finally settled on November 16th, the NFL had to figure out how to salvage a season. Their solution? Throw out the entire concept of divisions and create something called the Super Bowl Tournament. They literally made up a 16-team playoff format on the fly. 8 teams from each conference, seeded 1-8, completely ignoring divisions. The regular season was chopped down to 9 games. And get this, the Cleveland Browns made the playoffs with a 4-5 record. The Detroit Lions also snuck in with a losing record. It was like letting the kid who strikes out in T-ball play in the World Series. Washington ended up winning it all, beating Miami 27-17 in Super Bowl 17. John Riggins' 43-yard touchdown run on 4th and 1 became legendary. But the whole season had an asterisk feel to it. Fun fact, this was the only time in NFL history we had 2 teams with losing records in the playoffs until Seattle did it again in 2010. The financial hit was massive. Instead of their usual 16-game paychecks, players lost nearly half their salaries, but they did secure $1.6 billion in benefits and increased minimum salaries. The owners learned that fans would watch anything with NFL slapped on it. Ratings only dropped 20% despite the circus. It was chaos, it was messy, and it was absolutely unforgettable. Number 4, the 1987 Strike the Year of the Scab. Buckle up, because 1987 was when the NFL labor wars turned into a full contact sport off the field. This 24-day strike starting September 22nd gave us replacement players crossing picket lines and some of the most bizarre football ever broadcast on television. The owners had learned from 1982. This time, they came prepared with a diabolical plan replacement players, or as the striking players called them, scabs. Teams had secretly recruited everyone from truck drivers to prison inmates on work release programs. The Chicago Bears signed a house painter as their backup QB, a guy named Sean Payton. Yeah, that Sean Payton, future Super Bowl winning coach. The nicknames were Savage, the Chicago Spare Bears, the Seattle Sea Scabs, the San Francisco Phony Niners, the New Orleans St. Elsewheres. In Kansas City, striking players showed up with unloaded shotguns yelling, "We're looking for scabs." In Houston, the real Oilers pelted the replacement team bus with eggs and rocks. It was absolute mayhem. But here's what killed the strike big-name players started crossing. When Joe Montana, Lawrence Taylor, and Tony Dorsett crossed the picket line, it was over. The Union crumbled faster than the replacement Bears' offensive line. After 24 days, players returned to work with absolutely nothing. No new CBA, no free agency, just bruised egos and empty wallets. The Washington Redskins became heroes of the replacement era. They were one of only 2 teams, along with the Eagles, where no regular players crossed the picket line. The replacement squad went 3-0, including a stunning Monday Night Football upset of Dallas, where the Cowboys had multiple Hall of Famers playing. That replacement team got Super Bowl rings in 2018, only 31 years late. The 1987 strike was a disaster for players, but accidentally created some amazing stories. Eugene Seal, a replacement linebacker for Houston, played so well he stuck in the NFL for 7 years. The real legacy? It proved that unity matters. When 15% of your members cross the picket line, you've already lost. The players learned that lesson the hard way. Number 3, the 2001 referee lockout when the zebras struck. Now here's a plot twist, our first labor dispute that didn't involve players. In 2001, the NFL locked out the referees right before the season started. That's right, the zebras went on strike, and suddenly everyone realized how much we actually need those guys in stripes. The dispute was about money and working conditions. The regular refs wanted better pay and improved retirement benefits. The NFL's response? Well, just hire replacements, because that worked so well in 1987, right? Spoiler alert, it was a disaster that lasted through the preseason and week 1 of the regular season. The replacement officials were, let's be charitable and say, overwhelmed. They came from college conferences, high school leagues, and probably a few weekend flag football tournaments. Players and coaches immediately noticed the difference. Missed calls, confusion over rules, and general chaos ensued. It was like watching your dad try to ref your little brother's peewee game, except with 300-pound athletes running at full speed. Here's the kicker. The lockout ended partly because of 9/11. When the terrorist attacks happened on September 11th, 2001, it put everything in perspective. The NFL and the referees quickly came to terms with the regular officials returning for week 2. Sometimes it takes a national tragedy to remind people that football is just a game. The settlement included a significant pay increase for officials, better retirement benefits, and improved working conditions. The NFL learned an important lesson: you can replace players badly. But replacing officials is a special kind of disaster. This wouldn't be the last time they'd learn this lesson, but more on that later. Number 2, the 2011 lockout, the 136-day marathon. The 2011 lockout was the Avengers Endgame of NFL labor disputes, the biggest, longest, most dramatic showdown in league history. For 136 days, from March 12th to July 25th, the NFL essentially shut down. No free agency, no trades, no contact between players and teams. It was a complete blackout. This wasn't your grandfather's labor dispute. The stakes were astronomical. We're talking about a $9 billion pie and how to slice it. The owners wanted to take an extra billion off the top for expenses before revenue sharing. The players said, "Show us your books to prove you need it." The owner said, "How about no?" The drama was incredible. Players like Tom Brady, Peyton Manning, and Drew Brees actually sued the NFL for antitrust violations. A federal judge named Susan Nelson ruled the lockout illegal and ordered it lifted. The owners appealed. The lockout was back on. It was like a legal ping pong match with billions of dollars as the ball. Here's where it gets spicy. Judge David Doty discovered the NFL had secretly negotiated TV deals worth $4 billion that they'd get paid even if no games were played, essentially lockout insurance. The players cried foul, calling it a war chest designed to starve them out. Doty agreed and blocked the owners from using that money. The lockout stretched through the entire offseason. No rookie camps, no OTAs, no mini camps. When they finally settled on July 25th, training camps were absolute chaos. The Philadelphia Eagles signed about 47 free agents in one day. Slight exaggeration, but not by much. Despite all the drama, not a single regular season game was lost. The only casualty was the Hall of Fame game between the Bears and Rams. The new CBA was set to run through 2020 and created the system that evolved into what we have today: a salary cap, rookie wage scale, and improved player safety measures. The 2011 lockout proved that when billions are at stake, both sides will fight to the bitter end, but ultimately, everyone loves money too much to kill the golden goose. Number 1, the 2012 referee lockout, the Fail Mary disaster. And here we are, number 1 on our countdown, the most infamous, most mocked, most catastrophic labor dispute in NFL history. The 2012 referee lockout gave us the Fail Mary and proved once and for all that you absolutely, positively cannot replace NFL officials with guys who were reffing Division III games the week before. It started in June 2012, dragging through the entire preseason. The regular refs wanted better pensions and salary increases. The NFL, apparently suffering from amnesia about 2001, decided replacement refs were the answer. These weren't just any replacements. Some came from the Lingerie Football League. I'm not making that up. Weeks 1 and 2 were rough, but week 3 was when everything imploded. On Monday Night Football, September 24th, 2012, in front of a national audience, the replacement refs made the worst call in NFL history. Final play, Seahawks versus Packers. Russell Wilson throws a Hail Mary. Green Bay's M.D. Jennings clearly intercepts it. But wait, replacement ref Lance Easley signals touchdown for Seattle's Golden Tate. The sports world exploded. Players tweeted their outrage. The Packers got robbed on national TV. Even President Obama weighed in. The NFL's integrity was getting roasted harder than a Thanksgiving turkey. Within 48 hours, the real refs had a deal. When Gene Steratore and his crew walked onto the field in Baltimore for their first game back, they got a standing ovation. Think about that, referees getting cheered. The settlement gave refs significant pay raises and retained their pension plan. More importantly, it reminded everyone that NFL officiating is really, really hard. The Fail Mary became instantly legendary, spawning memes, documentaries, and eternal Packers fan rage. It proved that sometimes you have to completely fail to appreciate what you had. The 2012 referee lockout wasn't just a labor dispute. It was a comedy of errors that forced the NFL to admit what we all knew. You can't fake it till you make it with replacement refs. And there you have it, every NFL lockout and strike from the revolutionary summer of '68 to the Fail Mary fiasco of 2012. From players with shotguns to scabs from 7-Eleven, from 57-day strikes to 136-day lockouts, the NFL's labor history is wilder than any game played on the field. These battles shaped everything from free agency to referee respect, proving that sometimes the biggest hits happen in courtrooms, not stadiums. Think this was intense? Wait until the next CBA expires, because if history teaches us anything, it's that billionaires and millionaires fighting over billions never gets old. If you enjoyed this deep dive into NFL labor chaos, smash that subscribe button harder than the owner smashed the players in '87. Until next time, keep your contracts signed and your replacements ready.